Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Captain Kyle in the house with a special guest, everybody. So I'm excited to have these two in the same room. They've been in the same room and the same podcast together, but not on mine. So I'm very excited and honored to have the two of them together. Captain doesn't know who it is yet, so I'm going to surprise him. He told me to surprise him. So it will be a good time, everybody. Also, too, let's see, I got to get a little distracted here. Please, everybody, be careful who you listen to and who you follow. I just did a show over there on my X Space with Josh Reed and just concurring what I say all the time. Be careful what you're listening to, who you follow, and what you're putting into your mind. Even more now than ever, people are getting called out. We're seeing it left and right. I mean, we're seeing it, Candace Owens is going off the rails right now. She's offering a bounty of $10,000 for somebody to come forward and say who's paying these influencers to put out these disinformation campaigns about her. So everybody, be careful. My thought process is if you're not guilty, why do you have to put out a bounty? I do think some of the things that she says about our wonderful president, Trump, is not correct in how she's going in that direction right now. And then she doesn't address him as, she just addresses him as Trump, right? Instead of Donald J. Trump or President Trump, whatever. So anyway, just be careful. I mean, we're seeing that just within the smaller groups within, spaces, Telegram pages of scammers, agitators. They're there, everybody. So please be careful who you follow and who you listen to. Narrow it down, tighten it down. Stick with the 3 to 5 people that haven't led you wrong in your journey here. More than likely, they're going to get you over this hump. So also, too, everybody know that I will not randomly reach out to you and ask you if you're ready for the scare event, finances, crypto, anything like that. If you get something like that, know that it's not me. Block, report them, let me know, and I will make sure they're not here in the channel. Also, too, everybody, we are being listened to in over 100 countries, so we are making some noise, some great positive noise. So I'm really excited about that. So listen, go follow, if you're not already, follow the podcast hosts or any of my social medias, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, PocketCast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. Social medias are Jenny Dreed Facebook at Jenny_Dreed X, at JDreed Rumble, at JDreed True Social, at JDreed Instagram, The Revival of America right here on Telegram, The Revival of America on YouTube, and at the official JDreed over there on TikTok. So you can see I'm not too hard to find. But yeah, check those out because I do upload the latest podcasts on all of those areas. Also, to everybody, if you want to email me because you have a question or a concern, please do the email to my personal email, and that's the Revival of America at yahoo.com. But if you have a story or a journey to tell and you'd like your voices heard, please send your submissions to TROA submissions at yahoo.com. And we will vet your story and get your voices heard and your story told on the podcast. We do vet these stories because unfortunately we do have those people out there that want to try to give some bullshit story and get on the podcast. So we do vet them, and know, everybody, it will be your voice that will be telling your story because it's more legitimate and more real because it's coming from you. And I encourage that because your voice matters, everybody. And your voice, your journey is going to help move us into this new world. Also, to everybody, sign up for the newsletter at therevivalofamerica.com. It is free. You'll get the latest updates on the podcast as well as the weekly shows, the times, the dates, the guests, so on and so forth. So as Captain Kyle always says, and I see he is in the room. So, but everybody, before we get in here with Captain, I want to again highly tell you guys to be careful who you're listening to and who you're following, and listen to that podcast I just did with Josh Reed because it was fire. It explains to a T pretty much what happened over there with the bombings, how it's all tied into the minerals and all the stuff that Trump is trying to do when he's trying to do with the tariffs, restabilizing resources from the minerals, etc. So it was very good. Check it out. I will be uploading that here after Captain Kyle's. And with that, what's up, Captain? You got your hat on today.
I do. You know,
I love
just
it.
a little while ago, I was covered in gasoline. I had to take my boots and my pants and everything off in the garage and leave them in the garage because I think I might have ruined my boots.
So let's see. We're not rolling in the ditches today in the dirt with your what is it? Your side by side. You're rolling in gasoline. What are you doing?
So I was doing maintenance on my generator. So I took it out and I drained all the fuel out of it and everything into a bucket. And then I was taking the bucket and I was pouring the bucket into the gas tank of the truck, on my other truck. And it's got a capless gas cap. And so you got to use this stupid little freaking baby little funnel thing to keep it open, to put a big funnel on top of that. And I was trying to hold everything and it didn't work out, and gasoline went everywhere, and it was like, wasn't a good idea.
My goodness. Well, I'm glad you're with us. I mean, man, that can be nauseating, that gasoline smell,
Yeah,
especially all over you.
um, it's yeah, it's kind of a pain. So, um,
So
so I had
how
to take
are
a shower, get cleaned up, and scrub all the freaking benzene and gasoline off myself, and I still kind of reek a little bit, but
I can smell you
I'm
from
a lot
here.
better than I was an hour ago.
I can smell you from here. I'm kidding. So, Captain, how have you been? A lot of crazy stuff going on. I was just telling the audience I just did a show with Josh Reed and it was fire. We were just talking about, all the Trumpsters, not so Trumpsters, wavering, not consistent, saying Trump didn't do shit with the bombs, and just all the rhetoric, right? Um,
Yeah, well, they're a bunch of retards.
yeah, well, the fake influencers, like even Trump called them out from not just the fake line stream media, but he's calling out the fake MAGA influencers slash podcasters, whatever. So, can you touch on that, because I think a lot of people need to. There's a lot of confusion going on about this right now, so I would love for you to give your take on that.
So yeah, there's okay. So as far as the influencers,
Oh,
it's all about money. It's all about clicks and what?
I think you're cutting out a little bit,
Yeah, can you hear
Captain.
me?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
Should be. I got.
Keep talking. Do you have full bars?
Yeah, I do. So
Okay, you sound good right now, so go ahead.
okay, I think I had to change that my thing up. So all right. So basically, I had to make sure this is all right. So
And touch on the Candace
test one,
Owens
one, two.
things if you don't mind, too.
Test one, two. Is that good?
Sounds great.
Is that good
Yep.
there? Okay,
Yep.
good.
Sounds good.
All right. So basically, the a lot of these individuals, they're in it for the money, and they don't care what happens. They don't care how it goes. They're looking for clicks. They're looking for controversy. They're looking for crap. That's all. And Candace Owens is one of them. She is she's, I don't even want to say what she is. Um, but there's a lot of individuals that are out there that people think are actually individuals, and they're not. They're actually bots. Okay. And this intelligence, that the AI bots that are being used, are actually so good that they can actually have a conversation with you, and you do not know that you're actually talking to an intelligent bot. And this is what the CIA has been using with a lot of these individuals that are out there, that people think they're following somebody that is real, and they're not. And even with the artificial intelligence, it's actually making a person that is not even a person. So if you're looking at them on video, just like you're looking at me, that the person is not real. It is an actual bot that's been AI generated, and you're actually talking to a program, and you don't even know it. And that's the thing. And the situation is when we tell you that you need to be careful who you follow, you need to be stable in the information that comes to you, period. Not it's one way one week, next week it's another way. Oh my God, they did this and now it's that, and it's fear porn and all this other crap. Because that's the problem, everybody, because they're using this information, they're using this technology to basically manipulate the public, because they're trying to instill fear again. And trying to regain control of what they have lost. And it's not going to work because the control has been lost completely. And so what they're doing is everything they can to try to regain it. And it's it's almost like too obvious, the individuals that are actually out there that are doing it, but people, average person, they don't realize it because they're just sitting there looking at what the mainstream media is posting, what the mainstream media is talking about, and then these individuals or entities or whatever you want to call them are actually parroting that same type of influence to create a fear and doubt and disbelief in what is actually truly going on. So, this whole thing that's been going on with Israel and Iran and even us, it was all calculated, it was all planned. It was planned before they ever actually went in and started the very first bombs in the bombs run, meaning all three countries. What you're seeing is the buildings that are being blown up. There's not any people in them, and there's stuff that's getting torn up, and there's stuff that's actually like the planes and stuff that they're shooting, and these bases. These bases are old bases where they used to actually exercises and stuff like that. Nobody's in them. They're destroying stuff that is for the Wag the Dog, the movie for you to see a war type scenario going on. That's it. But these people, it's all planned. And even after we went over there and destroyed the facilities, because this whole thing was about taking out the deep state and taking out their apparatus on trying to continue to instill fear, because we have white hats inside of Iran, we have white hats inside of Israel that are trying to take down their deep state apparatus as well, working with our alliance. And so even after we bombed them and did what we did, they contacted openly our administration and letting them know, along with Qatar, that they were going to basically have to respond. They were going to respond in this way to um, Qatar specifically, and that this is what time it's going to happen, and this is what we're going to do. It's going to be limited, but we're going to say it was an extreme event, and it was super successful on our propaganda TV because we got to save face. But it was all fucking orchestrated, all of it. Just like it was orchestrated back in 2020 when we took out Soleimani. They called us and told us that they were going to, bomb our base, and but they told us that nobody's going to get hurt because we're not going to actually hit it. We're going to miss. We're going to miss on purpose. We're going to tell you in the comments. You can shoot down a few of them, and yes, being able to save face in the situation and not look weak. This is all projecting to the public something that's going on that is not really happening the way that people see it. And this is about taking down the financial system. This is about taking out the potential CIA and the deep apparatus within Iran that was the that basically has been trying to instill fear going back all the way to 79. Took over. And this is all basically an orchestrated event so that rid of their means of operation. They have no more ability to instill fear anymore within the Middle East and be able to expose the corruption that's there. The same thing's going to happen to Israel because Netanyahu knows that as soon as this war type situation is over with, that his government is going to take him down, because they were going to take him down right before the operation started and remove him from power. When he gets removed from power, he's going to be held accountable for crimes against humanity and the crimes in which he's committed. And they all know it. Everybody knows it. If you don't, then you got your head up your ass. Period.
Yeah,
How about
that's what
that?
I say. That's what I say, Captain. I say a lot of people, they don't see
No,
this,
I
then
know.
they're
I
Yeah.
know it. That's what I'm trying to tell people. I know exactly what's going on. I'm trying to tell you exactly what's happening. It's been orchestrated, it's been planned. It was actually planned months ahead of time on when Israel was going to come in and first do their strikes and do all of the stuff that they did. It was all orchestrated between Israel, United States, and Iran before it ever started. And it's all agreed upon.
Yes, agreed. And
Everything was planned out.
it's it's great that you're saying this, because I just had, like I said, I had a podcast with Josh, and he's basically, you're saying exactly the same thing that he is saying. So everybody, we've got two individuals right here, and maybe the third one that's going to pop in here as a surprise guest, going to be saying the same thing
And
within
I
a
don't even
matter.
know Josh.
Yeah, Josh Reed, you were in one of my spaces when I had
No,
him.
I know, but I don't. Yes, I do, but I don't
Oh yeah, I
listen
like
to
to
him. I
talk
don't
to him.
follow him, so I don't have no idea what anybody's saying out there because I don't sit there and follow anybody. I ain't even been on Telegram all day,
And that's even better. That's even better. So everybody, if
because
you
I
didn't
don't
listen to
need to
Josh's
be.
show, listen to his show, and obviously you're here right now with Captain Kyle, but you're going to hear their Captain and Josh, and Captain's telling you right now he doesn't even listen, follow him. So they're saying the same things, everybody. So you've got to be, this is why I tell you all the time, you have to be careful what you're listening to and putting in your mind, because it can be terrifying out there what is being said right now. And it's, I sit in these spaces and stuff like that to listen to the bullshit rhetoric so I can come back and talk to you about it, or give it to Captain or Josh or somebody and say, "Hey, what's your opinion on this?" So sorry about that. Go ahead. I just wanted to let everybody know
And
you guys are on
Jenny,
target.
no, well, Jenny, I used to do that, where I used to listen to everybody, and but I used to do that somewhat, right? People that were somewhat in the know, and that was a good thing. And I would even listen to people that were necessarily insiders, but they were deep state, and I knew they were, and I knew where they were getting their information from the CIA. And the thing is that they would get a lot of really good information. But
Yep.
then 10 or 15% of it was where it led people astray. And then that's the kind of stuff that you would pick up all of the good stuff and then know, okay, well, that's bullshit there. Okay, I know what they're trying to do with this. And it was really good to be able to do that. I did it for years. But like right now, probably over the last 6 months to a year, I don't hardly even spend time on social media very much. I don't really follow anybody. Um, the people that do all of that hardcore work for you guys and do like that, that's Kelly, that's Claudia, and Scooby Doo, and all the people that are my admins on the channel. They're the ones that are still doing that on a day in, day out basis for searching for information, searching for all this kind of stuff. But I have it without ever seeing it. I have it because of what I know already, the people that I've already talked to, and the very few people that I have inside my circle. I less than a handful. And with that information alone, it's like I know it's coming. I know when it's coming. I don't know exactly how it's coming because that part is always left out intentionally. But it's like all of these events that you're seeing right now are not for you guys. It's really for the public, and it's really to expose the criminal element. It's to take down the deep state, to take down their financial means within these different countries and stuff in the Middle East right now, where you're looking at Iran and Israel. That right there alone, when we finally get that completely under control, which is very shortly, once that actually happens, we're going into rest wars. Because see, what's happened is you got Israel, which is like the basically the blackmail capital of the freaking planet through the Mossad, and Jeffrey Epstein was a part of that. Oh, Epstein files. Guess what? Iran actually got a lot of that information, and they've been holding it over senators. They've been blackmailing the world. So why do you think that Trump the other day basically put all that cash pallets. He posted the picture that was the one that was from Q, posted it where Obama's sitting in the room where it's got all these pallets of cash because Obama was being blackmailed by Iran. Iran got into all of this information, and then they started using it to start blackmailing everybody and their brother and starting to control things through terroristic acts as well as through blackmail. So once they get this under control, they get the information because the White Hats are getting the information and they're getting it in a lawful manner now that they can use it. But now it's taken away from the individuals that are going to be trying to use it as blackmail. That will actually free up the information that is over individuals that are within Congress and places like that. So whenever it does start to happen with the arrest wars, then it won't be able to be covered up and pushed aside, put under the carpet and stuff like that, because these individuals will basically have their blackmailer not the president anymore. And not that they're getting off of it, but it's not that they're going to be exposed for it in that manner. It's going to be within a deal. They're still going to be held accountable. It's just in a different manner. It's like instead of getting death and getting totally disgraced, you get to go out with, somewhat of a little bit of a story of whatever, and you get to spend the rest of your life in prison without disgracing your entire family. There's a big difference, but you're still going to be held accountable, period. So once we get that taken care of, which that's what we're in the process of doing right now, that's why that had to be so accelerated as soon as Trump came into office, so that this could be taken care of. So now Cash Patel, he's going after the Carnegie Fund and a lot of these other major organizations that were NGOs that were part of the control apparatus to take them down. And then when that starts to get taken down, oh, I see who it is. I see who the guest is.
Oh, welcome, SG.
How you doing, brother?
Doing well. Good to be here and maybe crash the
So,
party
SG,
a little bit.
No, I think it's great because I always like your insight on line too. And what I'm talking about is that Israel and the whole scenario that's been going on between Israel, Iran, and the United States was all orchestrated. It was all planned out. Basically, it was taking down the deep state in that area, as well as being able to get the information that Iran had that was basically blackmailing everybody. And I was just saying that why do you think Trump just the other day put that picture out with Obama with all those pallets of cash? Because we're continually blackmailing everybody because of the information that they actually came across, because they actually hacked into the Mossad's information. They got all out of this information, and then they've been holding it over everybody for a long time. Now, the part where Obama, that was a blackmail intentional on um, Saddam Hussein and that whole scenario. And it wasn't just Iran, but Pakistan was involved in it. Several of them were involved in it. And that's why Obama was sending them pallets of cash to keep that under control completely. So this is all being orchestrated to get all of that um, completely under control in the Middle East. Once it happens, then that frees up the ability to start the rest wars because that shit is coming. And it's coming really quickly. And so, what do you think about that specifically, SG? Because I know that that's what's happening between those three countries because it was orchestrated months before it actually went down.
Well, I think it's fascinating that you bring that up, Captain. That's exactly what we're watching play out in real time. I've been telling people for a few months, I think a lot of patriots have, that there's going to be an intel community versus intel community interoperative warfare that's going to go on before this process is over. You're literally watching that play out in real time. Additionally, though, I think one of the things to keep in mind, especially with Iran, is that Iran represents, a step up, a significant escalation forward in the battlefield when we talk about irregular espionage war. We just attacked the Arabic world's equivalent of the CIA's The Farm. This was an area in the Middle East that was used to train intelligentsia apparatus actors. It was used to blackmail and test loyalty inside those globalist blackmail spheres. It was utilized, as a vectoring point, essentially, for career advancement if you were a worldwide transnational criminal looking to level up in the space. And so why do you think so many U.S. U.S. political actors and U.S. military actors have been associated with Iran, even right down to the point where you have family overlap in certain members of the former Hussein Obama government during the 44th presidency, right? Iran, I think John Kerry's daughter-in-law or son-in-law is Iranian. There's several others that are associated right back to Obama himself that are directly out of Iran and Pakistan, including a gentleman that Obama had homosexual relations with during his mid to late 20 years. So what's going on right now is a multifaceted, multidimensional warfare campaign that is driving the deep state's nodes further either into oblivion or out into the light and into submission. And they were given a 60-day period. We have to keep in mind that Khomeini and the entire government inside Iran has not been representative of the Iranian people, nor the peoples of the entirety of the Arabic Crescent, the Arabic regions, for at least 50 years at this point. They've been an extension of MI6, of the CIA, of MI5 in many regards. And so when we look at that and we look at what's happening right now, I believe we've just seen in real time the offer being extended to those that have traditionally worked antagonistically against humanity's best interest. The offer was spurned, and now we have what we have.
Yeah, it's 100%. And what this is something that people really need to take a grasp of, that Iran was an actual really modern country in the early 70s. It was a place that people within the Arabic community and also around that part of the world, actually from Europe and stuff, actually went there for holidays and vacationed. It was an actual really beautiful place. It was Persia. I mean, that's what it used. I mean, that's what it used to be. So for what they did in turning it into the hellhole that they have, it was all about basic the control of the people and being able to use that as a hub for their criminal empire, just as they did with Ukraine. So we have this as a Middle Eastern hub for all of their corruption, their blackmail within the Arabic community, but they also have the same type of functions going on right there in Ukraine with basically the entirety of the Silk Road apparatus. So that was a part of this whole scenario on Russia's always been in on taking down Ukraine, and we're dealing with this other part, and we're dealing with it in a way that we are destroying it, cutting it off. This was one of the reasons that Trump went to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and over into the Middle East before this all took place. He had to talk to them about it in person, exactly what was taking place. Because, like I said, this was already pre-orchestrated before it actually happened.
Captain and Josh said the same thing on my show with him a little bit ago. So he did say that. And SG, if you can maybe expound, and I don't know if Captain has heard this or not, but you were talking this morning on with Nino about the strikes that happened over there in Iran and how far they had gone down and that they had hit a city. Can you maybe expound a little bit on that? An underground city?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And so let's take this part in two parts, because I want to assuage patriots out there that are really concerned about the constitutionality of what's happening right now. As we watched President Trump authorize these strikes in the public narrative, we had to acknowledge that there's going to be resistance, that does not optically look very great, right? But we have to also step back and remember that in this period of time, it's the entirety of the apparatus that's being leveraged. It's the entirety of the administrative state. It's the entirety of the wartime powers of the executive. It's the entirety of the lawful powers of the U.S. military oriented towards, things like terrorism, for example. And so, these strikes did not occur in a vacuum, so to speak, outside of an official authorization of military force. And that's something that patriots really knee-jerk reacted to, because we didn't see a publicly visible maneuvering through the U.S. Congress in the present period time, in the present moment, for authorization of these activities. But these activities were actually authorized many years ago in a couple of different fashions that have been linked together, in my estimation, based on how the executive orders and the U.S. Code actually reads, to allow for a blanket authorization of military force tying back to September 11th. So if we go to 22 U.S. Code, Section 9404, that is a public law. I believe it's Public Law 115-44. It's an imposition of terrorism-related sanctions onto Iran and specific parts of the Iranian government. I think IRGC is named in the titular part of that particular public law. And the public law goes on in its text to identify that it's not just the Quds Force of the IRGC Revolutionary Guard that is in control of the terrorism apparatus. It's the entirety of the IRGC itself. So we might as well say it's the entirety of the Iranian equivalent of, the Pentagon, essentially. And so you've got a huge component of those individuals that have tie over and puppet control inside the government, in the same fashion that the IDF and Mossad have a huge influence and control over the government in Tel Aviv. And so that particular U.S. Code 9404 authorizes all necessary measures to handle the IRGC underneath the auspices of terrorism. And it cites Executive Order 13224 and a couple of other executive orders that go back to the 43rd administration as its basis for authoritativeness in that. Now, if you go back to Executive Order 13224, that was put out by President Bush on the 23rd of September 2001, and it essentially allowed for the imposition of all sanctionable measures, that are able to come from the U.S. government against any actor, both foreign and domestic, that aids, assists, abets, or participates, or organizes, or harbors anyone involved with terrorism or the financing of terrorism. And 5 days prior to that executive order, on 9/18/2001, you had the Congress of the United States authorize a blanket authorization for military force against anyone that can be tied back to the September 11th terrorist attacks. And I believe that's Public Law 107-40 for the folks out there. So what you have is you have the entirety of the administrative landscape, and you have a pre-existing authorization for use of military force as it pertains specifically to this issue of terrorism and terrorism related to the September 11th attacks. And I would submit to you out there, Captain, and for everyone else on the call, that when we look at modern day Iran, if we think that a great deal of the machinations that actually resulted in those attacks, including the initial places where some of those orchestrators actually fled to bed down and sort of get out from underneath the limelight as the fallout happened, Iran is one of those areas that is absolutely in those crosshairs. And when we add in Public Law 115-44, I think is the name of it. Again, it's 22 U.S. Code 9404. We have all of the authorization we need constitutionally in the United States to use limited military force with the aim of removing terrorism that threatens the national security and foreign policy of the United States of America. So President Trump is leveraging a landscape that has been in place for a long time, but it's not going to get, mainstream breaking headlines. No main news outlet and even alternative news outlets are likely keen to go and put that on the airwaves, because it serves to showcase just how much is happening here, which of course would blow their sort of public cover, if you will. Now, the other side of this that Jenny brought up just a second ago is what was actually hit in central Iran. I think we have to keep in mind that the nuclear cover story may be, very partially true, but in an espionage and a disinformation war, and especially one that has an underground conflict running parallel to all of the surface machinations, we need to keep in mind that there's many more objectives that may have been accomplished here and may have required that use of military force publicly, which of course is a little bit of egg on the face of the Trump administration, again, perfectly within their boundaries and within their authorities and purview, but it looks a little bit difficult, right? And so there had to be an optical sacrifice made there. And so one has to ask, what was the gain for that? And President Putin told us a day and a half prior to these strikes that Moscow had Russian specialists working on the ground in Iran, helping them to construct not one, but two brand new nuclear reactors. So I would submit to you that the nuclear component is probably not the overarching driver here. We may have had weaponized nuclear rogue material or material tying back to uranium-1 that needed neutralization in this process. I certainly would accept that as a very reasonable plausibility for what was actually struck there. But I would submit another alternative explanation, or an additional explanation, for what might have been underneath those mountains. And that is a very large underground cavern system that ties back to the ancient underground city of Nushabad. Now, Nushabad, Iran, is one of the oldest underground cities in the entirety of the ancient world, and it's one of the largest in the Middle East. There's tunnel systems and sheltering systems complete with full rooms built out into the subterranean earth that go 40, 50, 60 kilometers in some cases in every direction. And there's a lake that's just to the northeast of this area that was utilized for irrigation purposes back at the height of the city's activity in the modern era, which was around the 9th and 10th centuries. Now, Nushabad, which dates to about the 6th century for its first buildings, with the dominant amount of them dating to about the 10th or 11th century, is about 10 kilometers north of the modern-day metro area called Kashan. Kashan, Kashan, is a central Iranian metropolitan area. It's sort of semi-urban, if you will, in the modern day and time, but it dates back to about the 12th century, and it happens to be the location and the settling ground of many of the Khazarians from the Khazarian diaspora. And there are subsects of Turkish and Jewish that are spoken in this particular area, subdialects, that are spoken in this particular area that date back to exactly that period. Additionally, once we saw the diaspora from Spain that occurred after the decree of Alhambra in 91 or 92, once we saw that happen, and a lot of those Canaanite rabbis who were masquerading as holy men of the Jewish faith were expelled from Spain, they settled in Kashan, Persia. And so what we've got going on right now, in my opinion, is the targeting of an underground infrastructure that likely overlaps with the exact same kind of evil that we're seeking to permanently eradicate from the face of the earth. And in my opinion, that's why we needed 30,000-pound deep penetrative ordnance bombs to collapse the entirety of that system.
Wow,
Yeah,
I love it.
so
Thank you, SG. Go ahead, Captain.
So I actually had heard the same thing, that there was a facility on top of a facility that actually led down into an underground dumb city area that was actually beneath it. And so for them to use 14 30,000-pound penetrators, 14 of them, that would have been an overkill for just the facility itself. So as far as actual, 100% confirmation about that, that's where you don't really get too much of it, other than the fact that there was a alternate purpose on exactly what they were doing. And whenever I said that that was a part of taking down the deep state, that was a deep state stronghold that was there within the framework of Iran that had to be completely eliminated. And the only way that they could eliminate it was through this means, meaning they had to have it orchestrated. They had to be able to blow it up. They had to be able to get down to it to blow it up. And they couldn't go in and blow it up the way that they have been fighting these other fights, so to speak, and being led to it, because there were limited access and egress points to the way this actually was set up. And it had to look like, for the public arena, that it was exactly what they said it was and not anything else. But what SG's talking about is actually true, that it was there. It is underneath the hardened bunkers that are above it, and that was all by design. That was supposed to be a protective layer that was over the top of the dome that was underneath it, but they weren't expecting us to be able to pinpoint these 30,000-pound bombs going through the same holes, exploding on top of each other. And then what they do is, when the second wave comes through and goes through the same actual holes, they go through until they hit a void. And when they hit that next void, which would be below it after collapsing the facilities above it, they actually then destroy that area as well. And so we're talking about 14 of these 30,000 pound penetrators. Nobody in, if you've seen what these actually do to a mountaintop, they'll actually blow a freaking mountaintop off. And they didn't, because they actually went down so deep and so precisely that basically it was an underground event on purpose to get rid of everything that's down there. And it has done just that. So when they said it is a complete success, that is exactly what it is. It was a complete success.
And Captain, don't you talk about it often that's what they've been doing? A lot of this stuff is underground, is getting rid of a lot of the nefarious stuff. I know SG's talked about it as well.
Yeah, so both SG and I have been talking about it for years. You know, Gene actually was the first person that turned me on to that specific warfare back when I think it was around 2020, whenever he first actually, got me involved in working with Gene. I think that was the first time, either 2019 or 2020, when I first started dealing with Gene. And that's whenever I first got really good understanding of what was going on below the ground. Whenever we had our military actually land special forces in downtown LA, because they were actually trying to create a pandemic. And that was going to be the cover story. They had contaminated bodies inside of a building that they were going to demolish. And that Friday before that following Monday, when that building was going to come down, that's whenever the military came in, special forces, all blacked out helicopters, and landed on the streets of LA in the middle of the night. And you watched them carry out body bags and put them in these helicopters, and they were in Class A suits. And so for them to be in Class A suits, that was significant in that that was a contaminant. They got it right, and they have been getting it right. But not knowing that this is what's been going on for years, and then finding out that this is how they have been operating since hundreds and thousands of years, is the networks that have been underground all over this planet, everywhere. It was all connected. And they had to go in, they had to take them out, and they started taking them out and systematic ways, from Australia to North America to South America, and all the in between. But everything was connected, and I mean absolutely everything. And it all actually ended up going down to south, um, to the Antarctic. And that's a whole nother ball of wax in itself, because we're talking about things that are ancient and that are, they're not human, and they have been here longer than we have. There's a lot going on that people don't understand, but it has to be done in a way that minima, minimalizes casualties, but also chaos within the people. And it has to be secured, it has to be shored up before that becomes public in that arena, because that's coming as well. I've said that open um, uh, disclosure in our relatives, so to speak, um, our family is coming somewhere in the end of 26 to the very first part of 27. And I have this on very good authority on where I got this information from.
Can you repeat that, Captain? I'm sorry. I was responding to an email. Can you say that again?
I said that All of this is leading up to being able to expose the things that are going on so that we can have open contact and open disclosure with the alliance that's helping us get through all of this. And that's coming, and it's coming somewhere towards the end of 26 to the first part of 27.
Thank you, Captain. SG, do you want to respond to any of that or add to?
He knows a lot of that as well. He should.
Well, I'll say this with respect to what's going on. I think that the overarching framework is one that we've sort of hit many times in the past, and it continues, excuse me, to show itself to us in the present day and time. You know, this is a multifaceted, multidimensional war that, according to the president's own Truth Social, is going to bring us to the point where the public not only is going to see, but actually wants to see military tribunals for a former president of the United States. So in that period of time, and in that vein, I don't think that we can, look at that and under emphasize it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We should really focus on that. That's a massive statement coming from your current commander in chief, right? This is a huge indication of how far, how deep, and how wide this is going to go, up to the point where the public, the general public, is going to have a temperature that not only is able to absorb, but actually wants to see true accountability and true justice for the criminality committed here. And when we look at what Cash Patel and the current DOJ are doing and other things like that, which we could philosophize about for a long time probably, but fundamentally, what are we doing? We are driving the needle forward in more and more ways, allowing more and more surface level cover and disinformation cover for those prosecutorial teams and those investigative teams and those joint law enforcement efforts that continue to nab huge child trafficking cells. There's dozens and dozens of children being rescued each and every week right now in the United States, just by virtue of the public-facing press releases. We don't even know about the ones that have yet to be released that are still working their way through, right? So, and then eventually this is going to get us to a point, in my opinion, where you're going to have significant public arrests, which we sort of expected as a result of the 2020 election going back a couple of years ago. I remember my late mentor telling me he wouldn't be surprised if we get to 2024, 2025, and a third of the Congress is being detained and questioned. But I think he was a little bit over aggressive in his concepts of how quickly things were going as well. And the 2026 to 2028 timeframe seems the most likely because that's the last half of the current Trump presidency that we're in. And that's going to gear the country on an orientation. It's going to set us up quite literally for our next election, our next presidential cycle going into the 2030s decade. And I believe the 2030s decade is really going to be where we start getting the true justice for things like COVID-19, for example, the massive biological terrorism attack and an act of world war that was committed against, all of us, we the peoples of the world everywhere across every nation state. And I think that justice and the lessons that we learn as we go through that, the first few years of that decade and headed towards 2040, that's going to cause a complete and total generational shift. And I don't think you're going to have to wait that long to see things like justice coming to those that are involved at the lower level, what I would call low-hanging fruit in the present day and in the present time. Russiagate, from what I understand, is going to be the initial salvo, the opening round of a great deal of the intersectory arrests that are going to be happening as we go forward, because Russiagate sort of opens the gateway for all of the criminality that was going on underneath the nose of the president of the United States and being kept intentionally in a pocketed bubble away from him in an act of ongoing conspiratorial treason. And so that's going to, I think, lead us down a pathway where we very quickly get into war. We get into the use of militarized programs against the American public. We get into the co-opting of scientific data and research, especially related to things like healthcare. And eventually we're going to arrive at those COVID-19 tribunals.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it's like in the way that I have been actually told that once we get the Middle East completely secured up, and that's what we're doing exponentially fast right now, so that we can lawfully, that's the key, lawfully obtain the information that Iran has got that has been using as blackmail over not only the officials, but also most of Congress. Once we obtain that and actually get it in a lawful manner, then the arrest wars are going to take off. And they're also going to start new indictments. This is a part of what's going on with Cash Patel right now, what they've been working on with the Epstein files, and so on and so forth. This has not been swept under the carpet like people think. The deal is that they can't talk about any of it publicly, and they can't say what they have, because the military actually came in to Epstein Island before the FBI or anybody else ever raided that place, and they took it all. The military took it all. So they have everything, but they have to be able to get it in a way that is usable and how it was obtained, so that all of these people that are a part of it is going to go down. They're not only using Palantir to identify all of the perpetrators that are in all of the videos, everyone is being accounted for, so that when this actually begins, nobody's getting away. This is what's really happening behind the scenes.
Thank you, Captain. So since we're talking about Epstein, I know it's a little bit off topic, but it's kind of on topic. But we're seeing it come out today that the prosecutors have dropped charges against Diddy. What are your thoughts on this, Captain and SG? Any?
So I mean, as far as it goes, the deal is that we all know that the criminal justice system is completely screwed up, and that doesn't put anything that's been done off the table for military tribunals, because it's a part of crimes against humanity. So he's not going to get away with it. And the deal is that he was actually turned as a informant. I think it was 2 years before this actually came to the public arena. So he was already turned.
Correct. Yeah, I saw. I've been seeing that as well. So this is kind of what I say to my little chat and my audience is that I think who one of the daughters was the prosecutor. Was it Comey's daughter? It's like you got to catch them in the act, right? Let them do the crime so they can do the time. And yes, we do know the justice system is jacked up. It's all messed up. It's, excuse my language, it's fucked up. So so is this kind of maybe what we're seeing with this? Let them do the crime so they can do the time, meaning the judges, the prosecutors, all involved.
It's highly possible. I mean, what just took place with exposing this other judge that basically was trying to put this injunction on Trump and so on and so forth. And then when the Supreme Court basically makes a ruling and says that he's going to he's going to, basically, do whatever he wants to and defy the court, this is the kind of thing that actually has to happen, so that it can expose them for the public to be able to witness how corrupt and how evil they really are, and that the facade that they're actually operating in is complete false sense of reality. It's not necessarily for us, it is for the public to see, and for the public to get finally pissed off and say enough is enough. And this is just one facet of the enough is enough that is coming over this summer, because this summer is going to be upside freaking down.
Yeah, I can see that, Captain. I can see that. All right, SG, do you want to add to that, or you want to say anything to that?
Well, I think the only thing that I would say on the Diddy issue, and I think it's about what happened today or yesterday, so it's relatively new, but from what I can tell and from where I sit, all of these judicial maneuvers are serving double-edged objectives. One of those objectives is to drive home to the public that the judicial system is involved in an insurrection. And an insurrection is a military crime. An insurrection and terrorism are actually indistinguishable in the modern day and time. And so we've got a scaffolding being built out, in my opinion, where you're going to see a lot of intersectory points inside the judiciary that are going to be caught up, like Captain said, for national emergency style crimes, including crimes against humanity and acting under the color of law and aiding and abetting the overthrow of the government of the United States. And so on that one side, you have that obviously driven home very, very hard with what's occurring with the Diddy situation right now. But I would encourage Anons to think a little bit more vertically here. Diddy is an enforcer. Diddy was someone who took a lot of blackmail and got a lot of tapes, right? But he wasn't an Epstein level. I would characterize Diddy as a B-class Epstein. He was willing to do the dirty work himself. The true godfathers never touched the other end of the spectrum, right? Plausible deniability and the ability to stay out of those orbits in every way that is meaningful under law is the name of the game. That is how a mafioso style situation runs. So if you can get incredibly useful information that allows the teeth of law and order and justice to actually grind upon some of those godfathers in ways that what they would otherwise not be able to collect that information, that may be worth a significant public optic trade. Because at the same time that you're going to make that trade, you're also driving home to the nation that the judiciary is nothing more than a defunct organization on its own anyway, and it requires a massive purge and a complete retraining and a complete re-education of all of the individuals that are going into law and that have enforced law against and over and above the peoples of the United States for a very long time. So I'm excited to see what's happening here, and I'm not at all surprised to see that this particular deal seems to have been cut and these charges dropped at the same time that we destroyed whatever was underneath Fordell Mountain.
So,
You know, and as oh, go ahead, go
hold on
ahead.
a second. So I agree 100% because when Diddy was turned, the whole thing with Diddy being turned was to do exactly what SG's talking about. Who was his handler and where was this handler above him? And so we know that Jay-Z and Beyonce were the king and the queens above what actually Diddy was all about. He was being handled by them. But in that aspect, with him being turned and freely operating with exactly that kind of immunity, like what SG's talking about, because he knew that he was basically kind of untouchable at the time. Um, Even whenever they were coming after him, he was warned to not be at the house when they came to get him that day, where they showed up and they had it all on TV and stuff. They were going to execute him that day. That was their intent, was to come in and say that he went for a gun and so on and so forth. And we took him out. We had to. And that removed him out of the picture, talking the deep state side, because they came in guns a-blazing like they were taking down the worst criminal in the world. And that was not the case. But Jay-Z and Beyonce are, I would say, probably one step away from whoever was the actual true mastermind behind it all. And that was their intent, was to get it to where they had information on these individuals that were the ones actually pulling the strings.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you. All right, guys. Do you guys want to real quickly, SG? I want to say something to you real quickly because again, you know, I watched you on Nino this morning, and you were talking about how there's a lot of things. Your hope and encouragement, because I think a lot of people need that right now, and the hope and encouragement you were talking about. A lot of us Anons should be really excited for what is happening because we have been talking a lot about this coming and wanting it to happen. And so I wanted to see if you could expound on that a little bit, because I know some of my audience members and people that I just talked to, and Captain, you can expand on it as well for you. They need that encouragement because, you know, unfortunately, the limestream media is not going to tell the truth. They're not going to focus on the positive. It's going to be negative, negative, negative. And then you have influencers out here that are kind of pushing this. They once were a Trumpster, now not a Trumpster. But can you just kind of talk a little bit about more what you did on Nino's, about just, you know, get excited and things are happening, you know, not so they just hear it from me, but they can hear it from you, they can hear it from Captain and other people, because I think that's just gonna, you know, the more consistent we are in saying that and putting it out there, the more I think people are gonna start believing it and actually seeing it.
Well, that is sort of the nature of the Great Awakening, right? We have to bring forth the world that God wants us to create on his behalf here in the world. And so that does require us to look at the positives, I think, in some regards, and think about how we can turn evil into good. We're turning liabilities into assets. We're turning attacks into defensive postures, and we're turning those agents of evil into things for the works of good, like the internet, for example, being the most obvious one that comes to mind. So Anons and Patriots, and what I was talking about on Nino this morning, what Anons and Patriots have been expecting and talking about: civil unrest, military being publicly visible, sequence of events happening inside the domestic homeland of the United States that allows us to basically place a pause button on things, even if that pause button is just a few hours or a few days in length. Those types of things are coming down the pike, and we're entering into the breach point, and we have been entering into that breach point over the last 4 to 6 months. We've reoriented world finance in tremendous and unstoppable ways. We've got a revaluation coming to the Iraqi countryside, now basically being declared as much by the Central Bank of Iraq in recent parliamentarian briefings that were conducted with respect to their internal valuation mechanisms. Excuse me. They've been approved now for the major IMF loan that's going to be given, which will boost their internal economy and allow them to achieve a status necessary to be readmitted to the world trade landscape. So that is something that is absolutely coming. We have the situation happening in Iran right now. That is an absolute, playhouse of the intelligence state that we are now terrorizing and destroying, as well as, I believe, the underground infrastructure, which might include secret technologies or various, types of frequency weapons or other things like that, perhaps of a dark occultic nature that we don't want to persist into the future any longer. So we've got so many indications, I guess, Jenny, is what I'm trying to say, that we've moved this needle forward in dramatic fashion. And our deep state opponents are, really without a command and control plan at this point in the game. They don't have a response mechanism planned out and in place for what's happening to them, both on the militarized law enforcement side and the civilian law enforcement side, and the investigative process that's happening there, as well as the broader mass awakening to what's really been happening and who these people really are and how they really function. So any cells that we have left, any insular pockets that have invaded the United States over the last 40 years, it's not been just 4 years that we've experienced this, it's been going on for 40 years as of this particular decade. Those have to activate and come forward into the light, either for submission and cooperation on behalf of we the people, or for interdiction and destruction on behalf of law enforcement, both civilian and militarized. And I'm expecting the domestic situation in the United States to have a pause period as we go through the next few weeks, kicking off again very shortly after the July 4th holiday into July, and then sort of carrying us through the end of the summer and into the early fall. I would pay very close attention to 2 dates as we go forward after July the 4th. That's going to be the 8th of August, because 88 has been a hugely impactful and symbolic number throughout this entire time period. Maui was hit on August the 8th. Mar-a-Lago was raided on August the 8th. The Pope died at 88 years old. Klaus Schwab left the WEF at 88 years old. President Trump's new flagpoles are 88 feet tall, both of them, so that's a double 88. So I would pay very close attention to August as we go through this. And then, of course, 9/11 and the entire week that leads up to 9/11 is going to be important as well, because that particular date is very symbolic, not only to our enemies, but to the American population. And it's a date that means a great deal. And so a lot can be accomplished domestically if it's done properly.
So do you think, SG and Captain, you can also to respond to this as well. Do you want to respond to that as well before I go into the next one, Captain?
Yeah, actually, because I agree 100% in the fact that everything that we have talked about for years is actually all manifesting itself right now throughout the entirety of the world, as well as here in our homeland. And we're seeing it in exponentially fashion of how fast it's beginning to move forward. And the thing is that with everything that he said, all of those are actually correct, from the financial systems to the changing of taking away the corrupt mechanism that the deep state was funding itself and financing these operations, to removing them for the ability to actually finance or to pay in the building up of any kind of response, and trying to change their direction. It's just we've cut them off at the knees completely. And in doing this, it should basically encourage absolutely everybody that when the exposure of USAID and how all of this has been a funding mechanism on stealing from us and actually funding all of these um, organizations all around the world in the means of being able to either take us down or to cripple us in a unhealthy manner. And it's like it's all coming to an end. And you can see it happening systematically, one thing after another. If you just step back and you look at the whole picture and don't be clouded by today's actual events. And that's the thing is people get so focused, they get tunnel vision on what's happening right this second, and that's not the actual event that's taking place. It's the look over here so you don't see what's happening over here. And it's been this way intentionally throughout this entire operation, going back all the way to Trump's actual inauguration, where the military stood behind him and we went into a form of continuity of government and martial law that day. And we have been in it ever since. And so this whole scenario has been about bringing the corrupt organizations down and exposing them systematically to the public and bringing this out into the public arena. And so when these wars and this stuff that's happening and these planes that are being bombed and so on and so forth over in Iran. That's old technology. That's their old stuff. It's put out there on purpose to be, you know, as they show to we're destroying it. It's not what it really truly is. Just like when they had this attack on Russia, there is no way in the world that Russia had all of its potentiality of its long range nuclear capable aircraft actually in a vulnerable situation for them to go and attack. They had a couple of planes that they put in that scenario so that they could actually have a event take place along with CGI and digital enhancement to make it look like it was something other than what it really was. It was a sacrificial show on purpose so that people could understand just how criminal the UAE and NATO truly are, because they were the ones that were orchestrating this, because Ukraine and Zelensky is an idiot. He couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag, much less being able to put together an organization to be able to attack Russia 1,000 miles inside of their homeland and be able to get away with it. He could have taken them down in a matter of weeks, but that's not what this operation was about. It was about taking it out systematically without actually having a whole bunch of people die. And so we've seen where cities were blown up and destroyed. And then we also saw within 6 months to a year later, those same cities that were completely rebuilt. How in the fuck did that happen? Excuse my French. Because it's
You're
not what people saw. Those things were destroyed beforehand. It was all put together and then it was come back and been rebuilt and been put back together, because this whole thing that we've been talking about is that when you go through this situation, we have to rebuild something that's been destroyed. Financial system, the public, everything. And so it all has to come down so that it can be reconstituted as something that was good out of the ashes of something that was corrupt, evil, and decimate. And so this whole thing, this is a master show I mean, a master show of Wag the Dog, the movie. And Trump, even today, called the king and queen of freaking The Hague central casting.
Yes, he did.
I mean,
He's
come on,
telling us,
people.
everybody.
I mean, you have to understand it is not what you think you see. The only time that they have allowed, they've done it intentionally with making it to where when Biden was in office, so to speak, the actor, and when they made it to where half of his head cut off and they made it to where his hand went through the microphone and stuff, they did that on purpose so that you could see that it was not what you thought you were seeing, because it was all fake and a show. But if they really wanted you not to ever know it, the technology's there and good enough that they can make it to the point where you would not know that it was not what they were trying to show you. Those mistakes were intentional to bring awareness to what you're seeing is not what you're truly seeing on purpose.
Amen. Things aren't always as they seem. Okay, SG and Captain, I'm going to ask one more last question for myself, and then Ms. Kelly is in the house. I'm going to have you, Kelly. You can go ahead and start reading some questions. So, SG and Captain Kyle. So we know there's sleeper cells in our country. What are your thoughts? You know, we hear the fear mongering going on out there. I mean, I've heard they're going to be going door to door now, that kind of stuff. We know that's not going to happen, but I would like to get you both of y'all's take on what your thought process is on these sleeper cells. Captain, I know a little bit of yours, but what do you foresee here in the next coming days, weeks, with the threat of them here on our soil?
So, SG, you go first on this because I've got my take on it and I want to hear what yours is before I say my piece.
Certainly. So, from the way I'm seeing things shape up on this end, and just in my own personal opinion, what I'm looking at is an activation of sleeper cells across various dimensions, most of them tying back to the illegal immigration issue. And much of that, in my opinion, is going to blend with what we've got domestically with this internal sort of Soros-funded terrorist army in different areas. And so I want to highlight for folks out there, this does not have to be a giant egregore of panic. And I don't think we as American people should give our heritage and our legacy that sort of attitude as we go through a very demanding period on our own soil. However, there is going to be some various pockets, mostly in low population commercialized districts, where you're going to see significant unrest. It has to be enough so that the cameras facing the entirety of the nation can demonstrate a public facing, unquestionable insurrection. And that's one thing that we have to allow for in this process. Insurrection ties up the entirety of the political class. It ties up the entirety of the immigration criminality. It ties up a great deal, if not all, of the financing provided to illegal immigration and to the various election fraud campaigns that have been going on across interstate borders here in the United States. It also is a militarized crime. And so when we go through this process, I think we're going to see enough of that play out, again, in those low population, low density areas, mostly in commercial or abandoned industrial districts, that are going to show to the peoples of the United States that this is what primarily the Democrat Party, but the entirety of the uniparty deep state apparatus itself has done to this country. And here's how we can prevent this from ever happening again. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Captain.
So the individuals that are here in the country, they've been here in the country for a long time. There's been a lot of new influx of these sleeper cells that have been migrating into the country. And the deal is that the intent is to use these no king events and the civil unrest to bring forth a uprising within these communities and these cities, so to speak, that are democratically Democrats. And in doing so, they're going to escalate in size and in magnitude on violence over the next month in July. And I talked to Kelly about this a little bit. Haven't really talked to too many other people about it in detail. But going back to the sleeper cells are going to infiltrate into those violent situations and basically create a potential mass casualty situation and then try to blame that on a MAGA individuals rising up to create even more chaos. And so from my understanding is that the individuals that will partake in that are going to be apprehended, and then it's going to be staged to where it appears that this truly still did actually happen the way that they planned it, but it's not going to be what you think you see. Just like the event where Trump was potentially being assassinated, that was the military. That was not what you think it was. They actually did what they did, trying to expose the actual individuals that were there to create and commit the crime. And when the capacitory or whatever the dude's name was, that was the firefighter and so on, that Trump's been was parading around and everything, he was a major deep state sleeper cell that was a very, very bad dude. And he did that, parading him in front of the public, showing the deep state that he no longer exists. And most people don't know that. That name is actually a name that's given to an individual that is not their real name, but it has to do with the identity of a organization that actually are assassins. How about that shit? I bet you didn't know that. So this is all going to play out to where even Sarah Adams talks about where these individuals from the crazy Islamic Republic individuals that have come into this country as sleeper cells are going to be working in tandem to where when they do some kind of situation of a mass casualty or a event where it brings in the response of the emergency responders, then they actually take out this people in that aspect that are the emergency responders, just like what happened over in Iraq, and where they would actually set off a small bomb when they would respond to it. That was the setup to get everybody there. And then they actually then did the real damage. Um, but this is in a different way where there will be multiple type shooters in a situation where it'd be 4 or 5, and they're coming from different directions on targeting the actual emergency responders, and not only in one area but in multiple areas simultaneously. So it would be, where do you actually go to deal with them? But from what I understand is that they will be taken down before they actually commit the heinous crime, in which is supposed to be a major false flag that's being orchestrated from the Mossad and from the intelligence apparatus of the CIA and all that are involved in that, along with Iran and other countries, to blame Iran completely for these events and saying that they can never be trusted, and to bring us back into that war type situation all over again. But it's not what you're going to think you see. The people that are going to be extinguished are not what you think you're going to see. It's all going to be something that is orchestrated intentionally to create a scenario of a potentiality of another George Floyd type situation, to bring the unrest to its forefront so that it can all be exposed and be able to take down all of the individuals that are involved in it, all the way to upwards of the individuals that are funding it completely. And when I talk about how good Hammer Computer, the supercomputer, along with Palantir are, that's being ran by the AI super intelligence of the quantum system, they have it all, they know it all, and they're tracking and monitoring it all. And it's not going to be what you think you're going to see, but you're going to see it because it's going to play out like an actual movie. And it is going to be a terroristic event that is going to have that kind of significance in its visual effects on purpose. But that's not really what's actually happening. So don't get caught up in it. It's not meant for you to get caught up in, period.
Thank you, Captain. And everybody, I believe SG has to bounce out of here. He's got to take care of his little youngin'. And SG, do you want to say any final thoughts before you leave and we say our goodbyes?
Well, I have to say, I really appreciate the time and being able to jump in and chime in on the conversation. This is a pivotal moment, and we're entering into quite literally a next phase. U.S. military involvement in Iran was the signal to begin the next major actionable phase, which is going to play out over these coming weeks and months. This is an ongoing worldwide cultural and irregular warfare situation, and we, the people, are absolutely winning. President Trump just declared for us, I believe it was last week sometime with the flagpoles, that we have now reclaimed the soil of Washington, D.C. The capital of the republic is now located in the soil again. And if you notice, those enormous flags atop those 88-foot flagpoles were missing all evidence of any sort of fringe work whatsoever, and there was no gold on them in any form or fashion, not woven in, not on the fringes or edges, not even encased in the stars. So what we've got here, in my opinion, is the movement forward of a major situation here in the United States that is going to lead us into quite literally the reforging publicly of this great republic, the return of states' rights to where they're supposed to be, and the proper balance of power, and a clear-minded idea of what it means to protect and preserve and safeguard liberty for the entirety of the world. That is our charter here, and I'm really excited that we're coming into it now with the situation we have. We've already won this. We just have to stick it through.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I agree with
SG.
that 100%.
Jenny, before SG goes, SG, do you have a few more minutes? Because there's one question here of something that just happened with a truth that Trump put out, and the person is specifically asking for your input on it.
We can go ahead and take that question, and then I'll have to bounce off afterward.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so Trump just put out a big, long truth about Bibi and saying that his trial should be canceled and that he's a hero. And it was quite lengthy. I mean, I can go on to it and read it for you guys if you'd like, but it's quite puzzling. So if you both, maybe SG, if you can go first, and then Captain, give your ideas of why he would do this.
My very first idea is keep your friends close and your enemies much, much closer. And in this period of time, what do we have active in the United States of America right now that has to be drawn out into the light in a way where they don't see it coming? We have intelligence operatives and sleeper cells that are in charge of vast street criminal networks. And those street criminal networks, in many cases, utilize co-opted and captured variations and intersectory points of state and local level law enforcement. So think bribed sheriffs, bribed police officers, things of that nature, blackmailed police chiefs, etc. So what we have in the United States of America that's been growing over the last 40 years, really since the days post-Reagan, where we came in with the 41st administration and on through Clinton, the 43rd, and then Obama coming up into the 2010s, that was a cooking period for a complete internal overthrow of the government of the United States from within its own confines. And that government overthrow had to come eventually to an intersectory force on the ground that could destabilize the civilian law enforcement situation enough that formerly deep state component authorities, which I think have been overtaken now by President Trump, could be oriented at the American people. A good example of that would be the memorandum from the DOJ in October of 2001, discussing how George Bush could utilize the military forces, the regular forces of the Army inside the United States to combat and fight terrorism. So in this particular period in time, when we have a large scale threat actor enemy that still is present on the ground, that still has not come fully out of the woodwork, and we can tell that because the landscape inside our communities, our cities, and our states really hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot, both from the economic aspect and from the political aspect. We have to ask what the advantage would be of continuing to allow those sleepers to just sleep themselves along or assuage themselves into this sense of comfort and assuredness in their survival through this period. I think that's exactly what you're seeing on display from the president. Now, I haven't read the truth. I'll have to go and actually analyze it. And I may make it a subject of an oncoming file here in the next few days and a couple of weeks. But without reading it, I can't give much more of an accurate answer, or much more of an answer that's more accurate than just mere speculation.
Thank you,
Yeah, and
SG.
so that same thing on that is that what I would say is that they need to stabilize normalcy as much as possible, because Netanyahu is being controlled by Trump and through the alliance, just like I said, with what actually took place in Iran and everything else. And right before that, they were going to take him down and actually start these criminal proceedings against him. And you cannot do that when these operations are still completely underway, where there is a potentiality of a monkey wrench getting thrown into a operational plan that does not need to happen at this moment. I think it's more of them being told to pull your jets, hold on, and it'll happen when it happens.
Yeah, and
Amen.
they're talking about a big announcement for the Abraham Accords with new nations that will be signing on soon that will surprise people. So I think that probably plays a big part of that too.
So
SG,
yeah,
I know you gotta go. Thank you for being here. I will do you want me to send you the upload to you? Because I know
Certainly.
Laura's been out, and then I'll get with you to get you scheduled for next month.
Sounds
I think.
fantastic. All.
Thank you,
hey,
SG. God bless you. Thank you for being here, my friend.
God bless. We'll
yeah,
speak soon.
I had a good time, enjoyed it, and I'll have you over on the show, and me and you just talk ourselves before long.
Sounds wonderful. God bless all. Stay safe today.
Thank you,
Talk to you later,
SG.
sir.
Bye-bye.
Well, damn, I feel left out over there, Captain. No, I'm kidding. All right, Captain. I know you give us 90 minutes of your time. This is a great podcast. You want to take a couple questions before we bounce out of here?
Yeah, we can do a couple more.
All right, go for it, Miss Kelly. It's all you.
Okay, yeah, there's just a couple here anyway, so that works. Let's see. Was this past few days Iran the scare event, or are we looking for something else? I don't think it was, but wanted your opinion.
It's not necessarily the scare event, it's a culmination of scare events, plural. And they all lead up to and become more um,
Intense?
fear-based over time, because each one kind of builds upon another one and builds upon another one. And it's not necessarily any one particular scare event. It's a culmination of events that bring forth the true nature of being in fear, and that everything is basically going to hell in a handbasket. There's going to be a nuclear scare, from my understanding, and it's going to come from the potentiality of North Korea, and it's all going to be set up as just that, a setup. It's not going to be actually nuclear. It is going to be an explosion. It's going to be huge, and it's going to be made to look like a nuclear event. It won't. It'll be in an unpopulated area, or it will like an accidental where it didn't actually go to where it was supposed to, or actually over the water, and then be a CGI enhanced to where it actually looks like a actual nuclear event. Um, so it's still coming, and it's just not coming from the way that people think it's going to happen.
And real quickly, and this is why everybody, it's so important to be careful who you follow and what you're listening to, because if you're listening to this and Captain SG and everybody that we talk to here, right, they're telling you what's going to happen, and not to be fearful. It's not for us. It's going to look like, wag the dog, right? So that's why it's so important to be careful you listen to, because others may say something different and you need to be terrified. You need to be this. You need to pick a side, everybody. It is that time. Pick your side, pick who you're following, stick and stay, and don't waver from it. If you've got people you're following that are consistent, they don't change their stories, they're saying the same thing throughout this, then you know you're listening to the right people. If they're changing the script, they're being wavering, and they're all over the place, then you need to run. So you guys really need to tighten up your circles and pay attention to who you're listening to and who you're following. Go ahead, Captain or Kelly.
If you haven't seen the movie Wag the Dog, then watch it, and then you'll understand what we're talking about on an orchestrated simulation of a war type scenario, and how easy it can be actually accomplished. And this is something that has been going on for some time. And with Trump continually telling us about central casting is just that. It is a casting company. It's the largest casting company in the world.
Yep.
It is real. It is a real thing. It's not like he's just saying that. He's telling you over and over and over again that it is part of the movie. They're up their central casting. No shit. Thank you for telling us.
Again and again and again. We should know it by now, everybody. I think he probably said it 3 or 4 times today. Central casting, central casting. He said it. He's telling us, everybody. Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, there's just one more here. Why haven't Ilan Omar and others not gone already? I know so many are, and I am on board with the movie, although it seems so obvious to so many that they are not arrested or tried for treason. The American people question why acts like marrying your brother and loyalty to Somalia isn't addressed. It's insult to injury.
So, that's a very good question in all actuality. It's like, why are like Schumer up there still being able to spout off to the public like everything is okay, and all of these individuals, because they're all corrupt, and so is, Ilmar freaking, I'm not even gonna say it. So it is a slap in the face to individuals that know just how corrupt that whole situation is, and that nothing ever happens. But the deal is that goes back to the same situation that I talked about in the very beginning of the show, where the information that is basically over all of Congress and all of the Senate on the blackmail and the things that are held over everybody's head is something that is a part of the Epstein files, as well as the blackmail information that is being held through the Mossad and through Iran. And Iran has all of that information as well. And this was a part of the operations that were being done just now to be able to take down the deep state within Iran and have that information now given over to the White Hats in a lawful manner, so that it can now be used in a proper way of obtaining that information. And in doing so, it's now going to unleash the rest wars that we have been talking about, because it couldn't happen until the blackmailers are taken off the board. And this was what was happening in Iran. This is what's being finished right now in Iran, is the blackmailers are being taken off the board, and a regime change is coming with you have the exiled royal that is wanting to come back and take over his reign over Iran, and the people are wanting to have that regime completely removed now. And when this takes place, which is going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively quickly, then the arrest wars that we've been wanting to happen and seeing people get arrested is going to start taking place rather quickly. And you got to take this all in a systematic manner so that things don't get, because you've got still people being controlled completely through blackmail. And you have to get all of that taken care of so that you have all that information and the blackmailers are not in the picture anymore. They're not going to get off from it, but it's going to be how it's going to be disseminated and dealt with their cooperation on taking down everybody that needs to be taken down, because the indictments are already there. The federal indictments have only grown, and there's going to be a whole lot more that are coming. So it has to happen in a lawful way. And that's what's actually taking place. Just because you have the information, how did you obtain that information? And if you obtained it illegally, then it's not usable in a form to be able to take people down. So they have to go through proper means on being able to make it lawful by the information in which they have, so that they can hold all of the people accountable for the things that they have done. Not just some of the things that they've done, all of the things that they've done. And this is coming. It's coming rather quickly. And when it happens, it's going to be an oh shit moment for not just here in America, but the world. And the deep state knows it's coming, and they are actually terrified right now because there's nothing they can do to stop it. Nothing.
And apparently, I think it's Schumer. I read or that he's been hospitalized due to dizziness. Oh boy, here we go. So
Yeah.
yeah, everybody, it's happened. I say stay head on a swivel, everybody. Stay focused on God. I mean, we know this is coming. This is what we've been wanting. Just stay out of any kind of trouble you see. Just don't try to be Captain Save a Hero out there. So, Captain, with that, I know you give us 90 minutes and we went 5 minutes over. Do we have any more questions, Kelly, or are we good?
No, that was it, honey. Thank you.
Well, this was a great show. We'll have to do this more often, Captain. This is really, really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, everybody, I appreciate you being here. Have a great weekend. There's no more shows with me for the rest of the week. I will put out the show lineup for next week. But Captain and Kelly, thank you for being here. I love you guys. I will get you guys the replay once I get it uploaded. And with that, everybody, have a great rest of your evening. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Kelly. We'll talk to you guys. Oh, and Captain's here every other Wednesday. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, Captain.
Yep. Will do.
All right, guys. All right. Love you all. God bless. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Talk
Good
to you
night.
later.
Love
Bye,
you.
Kelly.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
Captain.